We've been telling you since day one that this is not a war to eliminate Hamas. This is not a war against Hamas. Right from the start, Israel has used genocidal rhetoric and their plan to annex Gaza has been clear. And now that plan has been exposed again. It's out in the open again. And here is the Israeli finance minister endorsing it as well. Previously, an intel document had leaked which showed plans to push the people of Palestine into the Sinai desert. Now, here is an Israeli major general saying they should be causing humanitarian disasters. Civilian loss of life is not collateral damage in Palestine, it is Israel's strategy. In the article, the Israeli Major General criticizes America for thinking that there are citizens in Palestine. Remember, on October 13th, the Israeli president said that there are no innocents in Gaza. The same thing was said by the Israeli defense minister in 2018. The war did not start on October 7th. Israel specifically targets civilians, so much so that fighters in Gaza are using sounds of children to lure IDF fighters into an ambush. Let alone Palestinian civilians, Israel did not even try to minimize Israeli civilian casualties on October 7th. In the previous video, we addressed what actually happened on October 7th, along with 19 other myths that we've addressed in previous videos, including the myth that Israel tries to minimize civilian casualties. If you feel something's not being addressed in this video, it might have been in the previous two in the series. Everything that I told you about what actually happened on October 7th in the previous video has now been endorsed, including by Israel's own newspaper, Haaretz. This is why Israel is trying to shut down Haaretz. Talk about being the only democracy in the Middle East. Israel is even trying to control what the hostages can and cannot say to the media. I mean, just look at the differences in the videos. Israel tortured and assaulted the hostages before leaving, so much so that one person could not even recognize his own family. Israel shot at loved ones trying to get to their family members. Israel stopped people from celebrating. Whereas on the other side, we were told all kind of heinous stories of what Hamas is doing to the hostages. Obviously, kidnapping somebody, taking hostages is terrible. But the worst things that were said, they seem to not be true. Going back to Giora Allen's article, it says, Israel must therefore not provide the other side with any capability that prolongs its life. Moreover, we say that Sinwar is so evil that he does not care if all the residents of Gaza die. Such a presentation is not accurate. Since who are the poor women of Gaza? They're all sisters, mothers, or wives of Hamas murderers. He goes on to say that even if they're not related, them suffering harm will show Hamas that war is futile. This goes against all conventions of international law to target civilians like this, to target family members like this. The genocidal rhetoric is clear, and Israel is expressing it without any fear of repercussion from the world. Giora Allen is a retired major general and the former head of the Israeli National Security Council. There is even a WikiLeaks cable from 2004 which shows Giora Allen's plan to push the people of Palestine into the Sinai desert. The plan has really not changed since then. These are the people leading the policy on Palestine and Israel over the past few decades. There was a former advisor to Obama who's also arrested for passing hateful remarks, including saying 4,000 dead Palestinian children are not enough.
Okay, well, I see here.
You know why? If we killed 4,000 Palestinian kids, you know what? It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough.
Here is an article from 2019 which says that Israel will try and cause a humanitarian crisis to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Let me remind you that for years, Israel has actually been counting the calories of food that the people of Gaza consume to ensure that they're kept on the brink of starvation. Remind me again how this is not genocide. And honestly, the opinion of people on Twitter does not matter, because here is Israeli historian Ras Segel saying that this is a textbook case of genocide. You have a state that has killed over 20,000 people, over 8,000 children, that has killed doctors, UN workers, journalists, that has cut off food, fuel, water for over 2 million people. And then people tell me that Israel-Palestine is complicated. Their genocidal rhetoric is clear as day for everyone to see. It is made complicated through the media and through propaganda. And that is what we will be discussing in this video. Myth number 21, that the people of Palestine are human animals. Ideas like this are presented for you to look the other way when 20,000 people are killed and millions are starved to death. Over the past 50 days, we've constantly heard the phrase, release all hostages. But when they say all, they simply mean the Israeli hostages. Nobody talks about the thousands of Palestinians who are languishing in prisons in Israel without facing any trial, without facing any charges. Israel has this thing called administrative detention where they can just pick people up and throw them in prisons and even label terrorism charges for things as small as possessing a knife, throwing a stone. A Palestinian child can face 20 years in an Israeli prison just for throwing a stone. I mean, look at the videos of the Palestinians who are being released. They still look so young. Now imagine how young they were when they were picked up by Israel 6, 7, 8 years ago. Some of them were kept in solitary confinement. Some of them were tortured so much that they've lost their mental capacity. But the media does not even allow Palestinians to be children, just like it does not allow black kids to be children in the United States. They're labeled as young boys or teenage males to trick you into thinking that these are future terrorists, that these are future Hamas members. And Israeli media is not even subtle about it. They clearly call them terrorists because remember, in their mind, there are no innocent civilians in Gaza. They're all terrorists. And the media is helping paint that picture. And despite Israel agreeing to a 4-day ceasefire, something that means nothing when Israel plans to bomb Gaza for 2 more months, what are 4 days in the middle? Israel has not even respected that ceasefire. It has continued shooting people both in the West Bank and Gaza. We're told that one side are full of human animals who cannot be trusted, but it's constantly the other side that does not hold up their end of the agreements. Israel has violated the ceasefire just like they violated the ceasefire in 2008 and 2004. I've been telling you that these things have political solutions. They don't have military solutions. Except media talking points are parroted by people who do not understand the issue, and they're constantly saying things like, oh, well, October 7th happened. What option did Israel have other than to kill 8,000 children? Maybe not kill 8,000 children. How is that as an option? That is an option that should always be on the table. The media wants you to see one side as human beings, which is why the sufferings of one side are humanized, which is why you see interviews with the family members, you see their pain, you see their grief, and you feel for them as a human being. Nobody deserves their loved ones to be kept hostages or kidnapped. My hearts go out to those people. But why is the suffering and the grief of the people of Palestine not humanized in the same way? Why do we not see shows on CNN, BBC, where along with the families of those who've lost people on October 7th on Israel's side, we also see the families and the loved ones of people in Palestine who've lost their loved ones at the hands of Israel. Media channels are not even allowed to say that Israel is the one killing them. This is why even during their worst moments, the people of Palestine are making videos to show the world their pain and suffering, because there's still people out there who do not think that this is true. We actually see videos of burnt fetuses, and I'm not going to post any of those videos because I don't think human beings are designed to even watch so much suffering, let alone suffer it, let alone see it with your own eyes in Gaza. They're decapitated babies, they're dead babies, they're pregnant women who are just been murdered mercilessly, brutally. They're showing it to you. They're doing press conferences with their dead bodies for you to just believe them. And the world is looking the other way. Whereas Israel presented a fake story about 40 beheaded babies that no evidence was presented for, that was retracted by many people, and when Biden spoke about it, the White House itself said that Biden is lying and no evidence was presented, and Biden did not see any pictures of it. It was the same for the rape stories on October 7th. No evidence was provided for it. Many news outlets who reported it retracted that news, but before they could retract it, the news made its way around the world, and to this day, people repeat the beheaded baby stories to paint the picture that one side is human animals and they need to be completely eradicated. What I'm saying, a lot of times people criticize that as being an apologist for Hamas. I'm not being an apologist for Hamas. It's quite heinous to shoot people at a music festival. That should be condemned. All the people that were killed on October 7th, we should condemn that. They're not acceptable. Obviously, that has to be contextualized in the history of Israeli occupation of Palestine. But the worst heinous things are only presented to you as the big lie for Israel to justify its genocide. What happened on October 7th is not a justification for genocide. There's not even a thorough investigation for us to know what exactly happened on October 7th. And more evidence is now coming to light that Israel was responsible for killing a lot of its own citizens on October 7th. The worst that you see, including burnt houses, burnt cars, The Hamas fighters were not capable of that. That comes from Israeli tanks shelling them. That comes from Apache helicopters shooting at them. And these are the asymmetries I seek to redress in these videos and in this series. These videos might seem slanted to you, but they're seeking to redress the asymmetries that already exist in our world. There is an asymmetry of violence, whereas the violence committed by Israel on Palestine over the past 75 years is infinitely more than anything Palestinian fighters have done in Israel. Whereas the media coverage that you see, that also has an asymmetry where Israel's talking points, IDF's talking points, and their propaganda is given so much more airtime, and their suffering is humanized so much more than the people of Palestine. If you look at the data from Israel's own newspaper, no baby 0 to 3 was killed on October 7th, whereas we've seen thousands of dead babies in Gaza. But what does the media choose to cover? Remember, every single Israeli accusation is a confession. They talk about sexual assault on October 7th, but if you look at the data, if you look at the story, if you look at years of reporting, it's Palestinian children, it's Palestinian women who are constantly and repeatedly sexually assaulted in Israeli prisons. All the evidence and all the data is there for the world to see. We will address the many lies told by IDF in the next video, but for this video, let's focus on myth number 22, the media's framing of the war. Somehow the media is showing this war in a way that makes one think that there is merit on both sides, whereas clearly this is not a war between Israel and Hamas. Israel has been clear about their genocidal rhetoric. Israel is shouting it from the rooftops that they're waging war against all the civilians in Palestine, in Gaza. There are no doubts left in the people of Israel that who this war is against. And many of them actually celebrate that fact that this is a war against 2 million people. But somehow the media will like to tell you that this is just about Hamas. Look at the statistics. There are more UN workers who've been killed by Israel than Hamas fighters. How is this a war against Hamas? How is this even a war amongst equals? At one side is Israel with the military might of the world, with billions of dollars in military aid, with the most advanced and sophisticated military technology in the world. On the other side, there is a ragtag group of resistance fighters. There is no asymmetry here. On one side, you have hellfire missiles and cluster bombs, and on the other side, you have 1 million children. Does this sound like a war to you, CNN? This is why you need lies, myth, and propaganda. We've already busted the myth that all the people of Gaza should suffer because they elected Hamas in 2006. Most people alive today in Gaza weren't even alive in 2006. That's how many people Israel kills in Gaza. Most people do not even stay alive to see the age of 18. This is why half the population in Gaza is below the age of 18. Let's look at the CNN article for you to see for yourself how the media is portraying the entire thing. It has to always start with October 7th. It first talks about Hamas launching an unexpected and brutal attack. It first talks about Israeli casualties because you are then primed to see anything that Israel does as a response. And if you watch Piers Morgan, if you watch CNN, that has to always be the starting point of the conversation. You're not allowed to talk about the 75 years of occupation. You're not allowed to contextualize October 7th within the larger conversation about Israel's brutalities in Palestine. It has to start with October 7th, then it simply becomes a discussion of, oh, how many people can now Israel kill after October 7th already happened? And somehow we're taught that October 7th was a big bang in this universe and there was nothing before that. October 7th is how everything came to be. You cannot gaslight the world anymore into thinking that Palestinian lives do not matter. They matter, and Israeli lives equally matter. Everybody who lost their life on October 7th, my hearts go out to them. It should be condemned, but the media skewing the entire issue 99% on one side is what I have issues with. It's the framing that I have a problem with, not the fact that Israeli lives are being mourned. They should be. Palestinian lives should be equally mourned. And it's these simple nuances that you need to start picking up. CNN does not say that 10,000 people have been killed. It says the Ministry of Health in Ramallah claims that 10,000 Palestinians have died. It's only Israelis who are killed. Palestinians simply seem to just die. Just like Palestinian hospitals simply seem to explode. They're not attacked. Everything that Hamas does is a brutal attack. Everything that Israel does is a response. Just look at what Israel did at the Al-Shifa hospital. We were told Hamas's command and control center is below the hospital. They went there. They laid siege to it. They killed hundreds. They destroyed the hospital. No command and control center was found, and the world simply just looked the other way. The reason they were so sure is because they had built a tunnel there in 1983, and that's the only thing they found. So much so that they lied to you in the video itself. You see a drone going down, and then it cuts to another video. They're presenting it to you as if it's the same video, except it's two videos, and they're not even both shot by a drone. You see a drone going down, and in the second part of the video, there's a person who's holding the camera in a completely separate tunnel. So much so that even Fox News realized that fact and questioned the IDF on it. But we were given no justification for it. They went in, they killed people, they killed doctors. Hundreds of dead bodies were put outside Al Shifa hospital, bodies that Israel stole and used for its own propaganda, and they simply bombed the tunnel and went away without the media questioning them. Why did you do this? Where is the command and control center of Hamas that you told us was below this hospital? Israel has been killing people for nothing. They told you it's for the hostages, except they did not find a single hostage. Where is their intelligence now? Where is this famed Israeli intelligence now? Where was it on October 7th? They tell us that their intelligence is spot on when they bomb an ambulance, when they bomb a hospital, when they tell you that there is Hamas there. But all the hostages that have been released through negotiations and political solutions. Solutions that were on the table for Netanyahu weeks ago. Solutions that he refused. Things that the families of these hostages in Israel realize. Things that people outside Israel do not realize. This is why the families of hostages are protesting outside Netanyahu's house, asking him to resign, because he's the one who ensured that these people do not come home weeks ago. He accepted the same negotiation, that the same agreement that was on the table weeks ago, weeks later, one would assume, because of his bloodlust to kill Palestinians and all Palestinians, because this is what they are telling you. And when people turn around and say, what else could have Israel done? Which other country would be held to a standard as high as this? And what is the standard? Don't kill 8,000 children. I know, right? What other country could be held to a standard as high as this? The genocidal rhetoric is clear for us to see. This is not a religious war. This is a land grab. They did the same thing in 1948 when they massacred hundreds of people to ensure that hundreds of thousands of people leave. And today, they have massacred thousands of people to ensure hundreds of thousands of people leave. And this is what North Gaza looks like right now. This is where the people of Israel want a water park built for them. This is the plan for Gaza. This is what the people of Palestine are fighting against. Now you get to decide what side you're on.